Hello and welcome to Scots United, where I, Scott, and my team of Scots, who are also me, bring you the latest movies, television, and popular culture. This week we are starting with television and something that is available on Amazon Prime.
I recently watched a very English scandal. It's the one with Hugh Grant. Now, you may become aware watching it that my hair is crazy. Sorry. That like I haven't seen Hugh Grant much lately, and wow, he's kind of gotten old, which he has. I mean, he's almost 60. He's good in this. He is playing a real person, a real politician, but it's much more than just an impersonation. It's well done. There's this sort of he's like this scheming, slithery sort of thing, but yet he can also be elevated and sort of you can see why people voted for him and why he could play the part of the politician. It's also just a show that is just well balanced to be funny, even though it's a bit dark. I mean, he plays a politician who's having gay affairs, and this one guy that he had an extended affair with wants to be treated with respect, even though he's in himself a bit ridiculous. He's played by Ben Whishaw, who's like the new Q in the James Bond movies, and he just won't have it. He won't have this gay guy ruining his political hopes, even though he himself is gay and has. It's hilarious. It's dark. It's just really well put together.
And I heard that it was nominated for some Emmys.
It's nominated for a few Emmys, and it won some. Nominated one Golden Globes. Definitely nominated. Not sure if it won, but you'll be hearing about it again when the Emmys come around, and it's worth a watch. Only 3 episodes.
A very English scandal. Check it out. And now we're on to a podcast.
I've been listening to a new podcast recently. It's not a new podcast, but it's been new for me for the past few months. It's called Unspooled.
Unspooled.
If you saw my podcast episode, our podcast episode way back, we talked about How Did This Get Made, where they talk about bad movies. And the hosts are Paul Scheer, Jason Mantzoukas, and June Diane Raphael. Well, Paul Scheer has teamed up with Amy Nicholson, who's more of a film critic, to do Unspooled. And they're going through the AFI's most recent top 100 movies of all time and going through one at a time, talking about the merits of each film, whether they would keep it on the list or move it, and it's really fun.
So what movie did they cover this week?
They're talking about Bringing Up Baby, a Cary Grant, Katharine Hepburn classic. I don't know if Scots United has told this before, but we are huge Cary Grant fans. He was briefly our boyfriend at one point, posthumously, of course.
Of course.
I mean, and really, this is just like peak, hunky, charming, sweet Cary Grant. Not that like North by Northwest Cary Grant isn't great, or Notorious Cary Grant isn't great, or Charade Cary Grant isn't great, because they're all great. But Bringing a Baby, and even a little bit later, Philadelphia Story Cary Grant, gosh, just, they don't make them like that anymore. They really don't. You see why Ian Fleming may have based James Bond off of Cary Grant a bit. You can see why Christopher Reeve patterned his Clark Kent persona after Cary Grant, particularly in Bringing Up Baby. He's just everything. And as Cary Grant has said, and famously said, everybody wants to be Cary Grant. Even I want to be Cary Grant, because he was born Archibald Leach in Bristol in England. So, that's part of Hollywood of yore, but he's just fantastic. Katharine Hepburn is fantastic. It's funny, it still holds up, and it's just the kind of charming rat-a-tat-tat screwball comedy, we don't make now, and it's really one of the best. And the podcast is a great way and a great entree into classic film, great films, and, worth checking out.
I remember Premiere Magazine. Do you remember Premiere Magazine? It's gone now, but it was a great magazine. And I believe when they talked about the greatest movie stars of all time, they put Cary Grant as number 1. And it plays into that quote of even he wants to be Cary Grant. He knew sort of the idea of what it was that was really beyond him and people's impressions of him as a movie star. He famously retired from acting when his daughter was born, Jennifer Grant, But he also knew, and he said this openly, that he knew he was seen as a leading man, and that it would be difficult for some audiences to see him transition into sort of character parts and smaller roles. And that wasn't said out of like ego; it was just out of realism. I think he was a deeply gracious and lovely man, from what I've read, and I have read quite a bit. There was more than one time he gave his entire paycheck to the war effort. He repeatedly had his money people saying, "Hey, we could do this and this and this and stop you from paying so much taxes," and he said, "No, like I should be paying more in taxes. Like America's been so good to me, and I want, leave it alone. It's fine." There were rumors about him being gay, and I don't really believe them. He was married to 5 different women, and he famously loved women. He had an affair with Sophia Loren, who he remained friends with after it didn't work out. But then again, you know what? Even there's a quote from him in the early '80s saying that there's nothing wrong with being gay. He just doesn't happen to be gay himself. I just feel like he had a deep respect for everybody. I think, again, the women that worked with him and men greatly admired him and appreciated his friendship. When the Hollywood blacklisted Ingrid Bergman for running off with Rossellini and leaving her husband, he refused to do so. He wouldn't play that game. He's one of the first people that got her back into a film project when they made Indiscreet. Because he's just classy like that. He stayed friends with Grace Kelly after she became a princess. He had, and you see, he did 4 films with Katharine Hepburn, and he did 4 films with Irene Dunn. He worked with Hitchcock 4 times, and Howard Hawks 3 or 4 times. He was given an honorary Oscar, but he was not respected for his talent. Comedians make it look easy. He came from the circus, and he had amazing physical instincts that he used. And just watch any of his movies. You cannot deny the just raw charisma and talent just coming out of him at all times. He's just an incredible, incredible performer. One of my all-time favorites. I love you, Cary Grant. And there he is on my wall. Have a great week, everyone.